My wife tried to destroy me in divorce court. She almost succeeded. My name is Derek Harrison, and I'm 40 years old. 2 years ago, I came home early from my construction site and found Victoria in our bed with Todd McKinley, my best friend since college, the guy who'd been best man at our wedding. The rage that hit me in that moment was white-hot, blinding. But I didn't explode. I didn't throw punches or smash furniture. I channeled that fury into something colder, sharper. Strategy. Victoria filed for divorce 3 days later and painted herself as a terrified victim fleeing an abusive husband. She wanted full custody of our 7-year-old daughter, Eunice, the house, child support, alimony, everything. Todd backed up every lie she told, swearing under oath they were just friends. I watched my case crumble in that courtroom, watched the judge start to believe her performance. Then Eunice walked in with her iPad. My 7-year-old daughter became the hero who exposed everything. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. We finished the foundation pour 2 hours ahead of schedule that Wednesday. My site supervisor, Frank Moretti, clapped me on the shoulder around 2 and told me to head home early. "You've been busting your ass all week, Harrison," he said. "Take the afternoon. We're good here." I stripped off my work gloves and grabbed my keys. The drive back to our suburban Cleveland neighborhood took 20 minutes. I was thinking maybe I'd surprise Victoria, take her out for a late lunch while Eunice was still at Lincoln Elementary. Maybe we could talk about the vacation we'd been planning, just reconnect a little. Work had been consuming me lately, and I knew I'd been distant. I pulled into our driveway at 2:30. Victoria's car was there. Good, she was home. I walked through the front door, my tool belt still hanging on my hips. The house was quiet. Then I heard something from upstairs. Voices, laughter. I froze in the foyer for maybe 10 seconds, just listening. That laugh. I knew that laugh. I'd fallen in love with it 15 years ago, back when Victoria and I were dating in college. But something about hearing it now made my stomach tighten. She was laughing for someone else. I took the stairs 2 at a time. Our bedroom door was half open. I could see movement inside, hear rustling sheets. I pushed the door hard enough that it slammed against the wall. Victoria was in our bed. So was Todd McKinley, my best friend since sophomore year of college. The guy who'd stood beside me at our wedding as my best man. The guy whose son played on the same soccer team as Eunice. They scrambled like teenagers caught by parents. Victoria grabbed the sheet, pulling it up to her chest. Todd actually tried to smile, like this was some awkward misunderstanding we could laugh about later. "Get out of my bed." My voice came out level, cold, calmer than I felt. "Derek, listen, man," Todd started. I said, "Get out of my bed. You've got 60 seconds to get your clothes and leave my house before I make this a lot worse for you." "Derek, please, just let me explain." Victoria's voice was shaking. I turned to her, and I let everything I was feeling show on my face. The rage, the betrayal, the disgust. "You don't get to speak to me right now, not one word. You made your choice." I looked back at Todd, who was hopping on one foot trying to get his pants on. 50 seconds, Todd." "Jesus, Derek, we can talk about this like adults. 45 seconds. And I'm a construction worker. I know how to use a hammer. Test me." He didn't test me. He grabbed his shoes and his shirt and practically ran down the stairs. I heard the front door slam 30 seconds later. I turned back to Victoria, who was sitting on the edge of the bed with the sheet wrapped around her, mascara starting to run. "How long?" "Derek, I'm sorry, I never meant—" "How long?" She looked down at her hands. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of kissing me goodbye in the morning and then texting him. Half a year of asking me about my day while she was planning when she'd see him next. Half a year of coming to bed next to me after being with him. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, and my voice was still unnaturally calm. "I'm going to pick up Eunice from school. You're going to pack a bag and you're going to leave this house tonight. Because if you're still here when I get back with our daughter, I will call the police and report an intruder. Do you understand me? You can't kick me out of my own house. Watch me, you want to fight about it? Fine, we'll fight in court. But Eunice is not going to be in this house tonight with you. I will not have her see you right now because I don't trust myself to hide what I'm feeling, and she doesn't deserve to see her father this angry. I have rights. You had a marriage. You threw it away for Todd McKinley. Now you're going to have consequences. I pulled out my phone. Get dressed, pack, leave. Or I start making calls right now, starting with your mother. That got her moving. The thought of her judgmental Catholic mother finding out she'd been having an affair was apparently worse than facing me. I left the room, left the house, and drove to Lincoln Elementary. I sat in the pickup line with my hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing slowly until the shaking stopped. When Eunice bounced out of the school building with her frozen backpack, I smiled. She climbed into the back seat chattering about art class and how her friend Madison had brought cupcakes for her birthday. Sounds like a good day, sweetie, I said, and my voice sounded normal. Almost normal. When we got home that evening, Victoria's car was gone. I called Gabriel that night after I put Eunice to bed. She'd asked where Mommy was, and I'd told her Mommy had to go stay somewhere else for a little while. She'd frowned, confused, but she didn't push it. Kids know when not to ask questions. Gabriel picked up on the second ring. Hey, what's up? I need advice. My voice came out flat. I came home early today. Found Victoria in bed with Todd. Silence on the other end. Then, Jesus Christ, Derek. Yeah. What did you do? I kicked him out. Gave him 60 seconds to get dressed and leave. Then I told Victoria to pack her stuff and be gone before I got back with Eunice. And she left? She left. Gabriel was quiet for a moment. He was a corporate attorney in Cincinnati, handled mergers and contract disputes, but he'd been through his own divorce 5 years back. He knew how ugly these things could get. You need to document everything, he said finally. Everything. Write down what happened today, times, what you saw, what was said. Get a lawyer tomorrow, don't wait. She's probably getting her own lawyer right now. Exactly. Derek, listen to me. Custody battles are ugly, and mothers have an advantage. You need to be smart about this, you need to be strategic. I leaned back against the kitchen counter. My kitchen. The one I'd saved for 2 years to renovate. The one where Victoria and I had planned Eunice's birthday parties and argued about what color to paint the cabinets. I don't want to fight dirty. You won't have to, but you need to protect yourself and Eunice. Get a good family law attorney. Tomorrow. I hired Morgan Jensen the next morning. Her office was downtown, 12th floor of a glass building that looked out over the lake. She was 50-something with iron gray hair pulled back tight and eyes that had seen every lie a person could tell. I sat across from her desk and told her the whole story. She took notes, didn't interrupt, didn't look shocked or sympathetic. Just wrote everything down. Your wife's going to claim you're unstable, she said when I finished. She'll say you threatened her, forced her out of the house. It's textbook. I didn't threaten her. I told her to leave. Distinction without a difference in court. She leaned forward. Did anyone else see or hear what happened? No. Eunice was at school. It was just the three of us. Then it's he said, she said on the circumstances of the separation. She made another note. What about the affair? Can you prove it? I saw them together. I know it happened. Again, not proof. You need evidence. Text messages, emails, photos, something concrete. I didn't have anything like that. I'd trusted my wife completely, never checked her phone, never questioned where she was going. Why would I? We'll build what we can, Morgan said. Character witnesses, your employment history, your relationship with your daughter. But Derek, I need you to understand. Family court is complicated. Judges have a lot of discretion and many still default to maternal preference. So you're saying I might lose custody? I'm saying we need to be prepared for a fight. 3 days passed. 3 days of going to work, picking up Eunice from school, making dinner, helping with homework. 3 days of sleeping in a bed that felt too big and too empty. 3 days of Eunice asking when Mommy was coming home and me saying I didn't know. On the 3rd day, Victoria filed for divorce. Morgan called me at the job site. I was reviewing blueprints with my foreman when my phone buzzed. We got served, she said. And Derek, this is worse than I thought. How bad? Can you come to my office? You need to see this. I left the site early, drove downtown with my jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. Morgan had the petition spread out on her desk when I walked in. I sat down and started reading. The petitioner, Victoria Harrison, claims the respondent has demonstrated anger management issues throughout the marriage. On the date of separation, the respondent forcibly removed the petitioner from the family home under threat of violence. The petitioner fears for her safety and the safety of the minor child in the respondent's presence. I looked up at Morgan. This is all lies. I know. The petitioner requests full physical and legal custody of the minor child, Eunice Harrison, age 7. The petitioner requests child support in accordance with state guidelines. The petitioner requests spousal support for a period of no less than 5 years. Every word was carefully crafted. Every sentence designed to paint me as a violent husband and her as a frightened victim who'd barely escaped. She's positioning herself as the primary caregiver who had to flee an abusive situation, Morgan said. That narrative plays well in family court. But it's not true. None of it's true. I believe you. But we need to prove it. She closed the file. And right now, it's your word against hers. The next morning, I met Morgan back at her office. Same view of the lake, same hard chair across from her desk. She had a legal pad covered in notes. Here's what we're going to do, she said. We fight back. We petition for joint custody at minimum. We present you as the stable parent, steady job, family support, clean record. We show the court who you actually are. And that'll be enough? In a perfect world? Yes. She set down her pen. But Derek, you need to prepare yourself. Victoria's probably going to win temporary primary custody. My stomach dropped. Why? Because that's how family court works. Mother claims she's afraid. Court errs on the side of caution. They give her what she wants temporarily, then we fight it out at the final hearing. Morgan's expression was grim. I've been doing this for 30 years. I know how the system operates. So she gets to win just because she lied first? Temporarily. We'll build our case. But yes, for now, she's got the advantage. Morgan was right. The temporary orders came back 2 weeks later. Victoria got Eunice 4 days a week, I got 3. The court ordered me to pay temporary child support, my money going to support the woman who destroyed our marriage. And there was one more thing. The court ordered me to attend anger management counseling, to show I was taking Victoria's concerns seriously. I had to pay someone to tell me I didn't have a problem that didn't exist. The counseling sessions were in a small office on the east side, 3rd floor of a medical building that smelled like antiseptic and coffee. My therapist was Claire Whitlock, a kind woman in her 60s, who wore cardigans and had a poster on her wall that said, "Progress, not perfection." We met once a week. I told her about the divorce, about what really happened, about Victoria's lies. She listened, took notes, asked gentle questions. After the 3rd session, she set down her notepad and looked at me. "You're not the first wronged husband I've counseled," she said, "and you won't be the last. But let me be clear. There's nothing wrong with your anger management. You're processing a betrayal that's healthy. Then why am I here? Because sometimes the system makes innocent people jump through hoops." She pulled out a form and signed it. "But I'll testify on your behalf if needed. You're one of the most stable clients I've worked with." I took the completion certificate she handed me. 8 weeks of my life gone. All to prove something that was never true. The worst part was watching Eunice adjust to the new reality. 2 homes, 2 sets of clothes, 2 bedrooms. Her whole world split in half because her mother couldn't keep her promises. She started having nightmares. I'd hear her crying around 2, 3 in the morning, and I'd go to her room and find her sitting up in bed, small and scared in the darkness. "Why don't you and Mommy live together anymore?" she asked one night, her voice breaking. I sat on the edge of her bed and pulled her close. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, sweetie, but it's not your fault. None of this is your fault. But I miss how things were before." "I know, baby." "I do too." I smoothed her hair back from her forehead, the way I'd done since she was tiny. "But I love you more than anything in the world. That's never going to change." She fell back asleep against my shoulder. I stayed there until dawn, just holding her. 6 weeks into the temporary custody arrangement, I picked Eunice up for my weekend. It was a Saturday morning, bright and cool, the kind of October day that smelled like fallen leaves and wood smoke. I made pancakes while she colored at the kitchen table. She was quiet, focused on her drawing. A house with 2 stick figures in front of it. "Is Mommy okay?" she asked suddenly. I looked up from the stove. "Why do you ask, sweetie?" "Because she's different now. She gets mad a lot." Eunice added purple flowers around the stick figures. "And she has a new friend, a man friend." My hand tightened on the spatula. "What man friend?" "His name is Todd. He comes over a lot." She didn't look up from her drawing. "Mommy says he's just a friend, but he stays really late sometimes. I don't like him." I kept my voice carefully neutral. "Why don't you like him?" "He's loud. And he drinks beer and leaves the bottles everywhere. He's messy." Eunice finally looked up at me. "And one time he yelled at Mommy and made her cry." I dropped Eunice back at Victoria's apartment that afternoon. She'd moved into a 2-bedroom in Lakewood, closer to Todd's place. Eunice hugged me tight before going inside, and I waited until I saw her wave from the window before pulling away. Then I called Morgan. "She's already got Todd around Eunice," I said without preamble, "and apparently he's not exactly Father of the Year material. Tell me everything." I repeated what Eunice had told me. The drinking, the bottles everywhere, the yelling, making Victoria cry. "We need documentation," Morgan said immediately. "Can Eunice testify?" "No." My answer was firm. "She's 7 years old. I'm not putting her through that." Morgan was quiet for a moment. "Then we need something else, something concrete." "What do you suggest?" "Do everything right, be the perfect parent, document everything, and hope Victoria keeps making mistakes." I did everything right. Every custody exchange I showed up exactly on time. 5 minutes early, actually. I kept a detailed log. Dates, times, what Eunice was wearing when I picked her up, what condition she was in, whether she'd eaten, whether she seemed tired or upset. I volunteered at Lincoln Elementary, helped with the fall festival, chaperoned the field trip to the Science Museum. The teachers knew my name. They knew I showed up. I coached Eunice's soccer team, spent Saturday mornings running drills with a dozen 7-year-olds, celebrating when they scored, consoling them when they didn't. Victoria didn't come to a single game. And when the court-appointed custody evaluator came to visit my home, the place was spotless. Not obsessively clean. I didn't want it to look staged. Just neat, organized, lived in. Eunice's room had her stuffed animals arranged on her bed, her books on the shelf, her drawings taped to the wall. Diane Rodriguez was the evaluator's name. Stern woman, clipboard always in hand, eyes that missed nothing. She came twice. Once unannounced on a weeknight, once scheduled on a Saturday morning. Both times she watched how Eunice and I interacted, how I made breakfast, how we talked, how comfortable my daughter seemed in her own home. After the second visit, Diane made notes and looked up at me. "You've created a stable environment, Mr. Harrison. Eunice clearly feels safe with you." "She's my daughter." "Of course she feels safe. Not all children can say that about both parents." She closed her folder. "I'll be factoring this into my recommendation." Meanwhile, Victoria's life seemed to be falling apart. She'd moved in with Todd. Eunice mentioned it casually one evening. "Mommy's room has Todd's stuff in it now." Like it was normal. The drinking got worse. Eunice said Mommy had wine with dinner every night, sometimes more than 1 glass. Sometimes she fell asleep on the couch. Victoria stopped showing up to school events. There was a parent-teacher conference in November. I went. Victoria didn't. The winter concert in December, I was there with my brother Gabriel. Victoria sent a text saying she was too busy with work. Yeah, work. At Todd's marketing firm, where he'd conveniently given her a job. Because nothing says professional boundaries like hiring the woman you destroyed a marriage for. I documented all of it, every missed event. Every time Eunice came back to me tired or hungry or upset, every detail. Morgan was building the case methodically. Character witnesses. My brother, my boss from the construction company, the soccer parents who saw me every Saturday. Claire Whitlock, who'd testified I had no anger management issues. Records showing Victoria's pattern of unreliability. 2 weeks before the final hearing, Morgan called me to her office. "We're in good shape," she said, spreading files across her desk. "The custody evaluator's recommendation is going to favor joint custody at minimum. Given Victoria's behavior over the last 6 months, possibly primary for you. What are our chances?" She leaned back in her chair, studying me. Honestly, I'd say 70-30 in your favor. That's not exactly overwhelming. No, but Derek, you need to understand. Family court is unpredictable. Judges have wide discretion, and some still default to maternal preference, regardless of the evidence. We've got a strong case, but there are no guarantees. I nodded slowly. 70-30. Better than even odds. But still a 30% chance I'd lose my daughter to a woman who'd lied, cheated, and was now living with the man who'd betrayed me. So we prepare for the worst and hope for the best? Exactly, Morgan said. 2 weeks, Derek. Then we'll know. The courtroom was cold. That's what I remember most about that day. The air conditioning was cranked up, and everyone was wearing suits, and it all felt surreal and distant. Judge Albert Clarkson presided. Late 60s, white hair, reading glasses that made him look like someone's grandfather. He had a reputation as fair but traditional. That word, traditional, made my stomach clench. Traditional meant he might default to maternal preference no matter what the evidence showed. Victoria sat at the plaintiff's table with her attorney, Jared Nguyen. Slick guy in an expensive suit, perfectly styled hair, the kind of lawyer who probably charged $400 an hour. He had that hungry look of someone who enjoyed destroying people in court. Todd sat in the gallery behind Victoria, wearing a sport coat like he was attending a business meeting instead of participating in the destruction of a family. Our eyes met once. He looked away first. I sat with Morgan. Gabriel had driven up from Cincinnati that morning and sat directly behind me. I could feel his presence there, solid and supportive. Eunice was in a private room with a court advocate. Thank God she didn't have to be in here for this. Jared went first, and he was good. I'll give him that. He painted a picture of me as a controlling, volatile husband who'd thrown his client out of her home in a fit of rage. He brought up the anger management counseling like it was proof of my instability, conveniently leaving out that I'd completed the program and been cleared by the therapist. He called Victoria to the stand. She'd dressed for the part, pale blue blouse, dark skirt, minimal makeup. She looked like a frightened victim. It was a hell of a performance. Mrs. Harrison, can you describe what happened the day your marriage ended? Jared asked gently. I was home alone, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Derek came home unexpectedly. He was angry. He'd been under a lot of stress at work and he just exploded. He started yelling at me, accusing me of things I hadn't done. I was terrified. I felt Gabriel's hand on my shoulder, keeping me in my seat. Did he threaten you? Jared asked. He said. She paused, wiping at her eyes. He said if I didn't leave immediately, he'd make me regret it. I didn't know what he meant, but I was scared. So I packed a bag and left. I had nowhere else to go. Masterful. She'd taken the truth that I'd told her to leave and twisted it into a threat. Left out Todd entirely. Morgan cross-examined her, pressing on the timeline on what exactly I'd supposedly been accusing her of. But Victoria stuck to her script, vague enough to avoid details, specific enough to sound believable. Morgan called me to the stand. I told the truth, all of it. I described coming home, finding Victoria and Todd together, telling her to leave because I didn't want Eunice exposed to that chaos. Did you threaten your wife, Mr. Harrison? Morgan asked. No, I told her to leave. I was angry, yes, but I never threatened her with violence. And why did you want her to leave that day? Because I just discovered she'd been having an affair with my best friend for 6 months. And I needed space to process that before our daughter came home from school. Jared was on his feet immediately. Speculation. There's no proof of any alleged affair. Judge Clarkson sustained it. Mr. Harrison, please stick to facts you can verify. I wanted to scream. The fact was I'd seen them in my bed. But without photos or text messages, it apparently didn't count. Morgan called Claire Whitlock, who testified I showed no signs of anger management issues and was processing a traumatic situation in a healthy way. She called Gabriel, who spoke about my character and my relationship with Eunice. She called Diane Rodriguez, the custody evaluator, who recommended joint custody with primary physical custody to me based on my stable home environment. It should have been enough. But then Jared called Todd to the stand. Todd swore to tell the truth. Then he immediately started lying. How do you know the Harrisons? Jared asked. Derek and I were college friends. I've known him for almost 20 years. Todd looked directly at me. I've always thought of him as a brother. The audacity. Have you maintained a friendship with the family? Yes. My son plays soccer with Eunice. Victoria and I became friends through the kids' activities. Just friends? Jared asked too casually. Just friends. Nothing more. Todd looked sincere, concerned. I've been worried about Victoria, honestly. Derek's behavior has become increasingly erratic. She's confided in me about some incidents that concerned me. Morgan objected immediately. Hearsay, Your Honor. Sustained, Judge Clarkson said. But the damage was done. Todd had just testified under oath that there was no affair, which made me look like a paranoid husband who'd invented infidelity to justify my behavior. Jared continued, his tone sympathetic, concerned. Mr. McKinley, have you observed Mr. Harrison's demeanor around his daughter? I have, and I'll be honest. It worries me. Todd leaned forward slightly, like he was sharing something that pained him. He's very controlling, very focused on being right, on winning. I don't think he sees Eunice as a person. He sees her as a possession. I was halfway out of my seat before Morgan's hand clamped down on my arm. Don't, she whispered, her grip tight enough to hurt. That's what they want. She was right. But God, it was hard to sit there and listen to Todd, the man who'd destroyed my marriage, who was now living with my wife, describe me as an unfit father, under oath. With Judge Clarkson writing it all down, I forced myself back into the chair, forced myself to breathe, to not give them the reaction they wanted. The hearing dragged on through the afternoon. Judge Clarkson listened patiently, making notes, occasionally asking a question that seemed designed to test consistency. But I could feel it slipping away. Victoria had been compelling on the stand, tears at the right moments, that trembling voice, the whole frightened victim act. Todd had backed up her story, no affair, just concerned friends worried about an unstable man. And without concrete proof, without text messages or photos or anything beyond what I'd seen with my own eyes, I just looked like an angry ex-husband making accusations. During a brief recess, Morgan pulled me into the hallway. The fluorescent lights were too bright. Everything felt too bright, too sharp. This isn't going well, she said quietly. I know. The judge is old school, Derek. He's hearing mother fled in fear, and father has anger issues. The evaluator's recommendation helps, but it might not be enough. Not against testimony like this. I looked through the small window in the courtroom door. Victoria was whispering with Jared. Todd was checking his phone like he was bored, like this was just another afternoon. We have one more option, Morgan said. One more witness? I knew what she was going to say before she said it. Eunice, if she testifies about Todd being around, about Victoria's drinking, about being left alone. No. My voice was flat, final. I'm not putting her on the stand. She's 7 years old, Morgan. I'm not doing that to her. Then we might lose primary custody. If we lose, we appeal. But I'm not traumatizing my daughter to win a court case. Morgan studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Okay. Then we focus on closing arguments and we hope it's enough. It wasn't enough. I knew it wasn't enough. But I wasn't going to put Eunice through that. No matter what. Closing arguments happened in a blur. Jared painted his picture. Frightened mother, unstable father, child at risk. Morgan countered with facts, with the evaluator's report, with character witnesses and evidence of stability. But facts felt thin against emotion, against Victoria's tears and Todd's concern and the narrative they'd built. After both sides rested, Judge Clarkson removed his reading glasses and rubbed his eyes. This is a difficult case, he said. Both parents clearly love their child. I'm going to take tonight to review all the testimony and evidence. We'll reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for my ruling. He banged his gavel. The courtroom emptied in silence. Gabriel walked beside me to the parking lot. Morgan was making notes, already planning the appeal we both knew might be necessary. You did everything right, Gabriel said quietly. Doesn't feel like it. You protected Eunice. That matters more than winning. Maybe. But as I drove home that evening, as I sat in my empty house knowing Eunice was spending the night at Victoria's apartment, knowing that by tomorrow morning Judge Clarkson might award primary custody to a woman who'd lied under oath, I didn't feel like protecting her had been enough. I barely slept. Just lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of testimony, wondering if there was something I'd missed, something I could have said differently. By morning, Judge Clarkson would decide, and there was nothing more I could do. We reconvened at 9 a.m. sharp. Same cold courtroom, same air conditioning blasting, same players in their same seats, same stakes hanging over everything. Judge Clarkson entered. We all stood. He settled into his chair, put on his reading glasses, and opened a folder. The silence stretched. I could hear my own heartbeat, could feel Gabriel's presence solid behind me, could see Victoria sitting perfectly still at the plaintiff's table. I've reviewed all testimony and evidence, Judge Clarkson began. His voice was measured, careful. This is indeed a difficult matter. Both parents clearly care for their child. However, that however landed like a stone in my chest. Given the testimony regarding Mr. Harrison's behavior on the day of separation, and considering the lack of substantiated evidence for his claims of infidelity, I'm inclined to. The courtroom door opened. Everyone turned. Eunice walked in. She was holding her iPad, the one I'd given her for her birthday, the one she used for frozen games and YouTube videos. Her backpack was on her shoulders. She looked small and scared, but her jaw was set in a way I recognized. That stubborn Harrison determination. Behind her, looking flustered, was the court advocate who'd been sitting with her. "Your Honor, I'm sorry," the advocate stammered. She insisted, "Daddy." Eunice's voice was small but determined. She was looking right at me. "I have something for the judge." Judge Clarkson blinked behind his reading glasses. "Young lady, this is highly irregular. Please." Eunice took a step forward. "I recorded something. Mommy doesn't know, but I think you should see it." The courtroom went completely silent. Judge Clarkson looked at me, then at Morgan, then back at Eunice. What had she recorded? When? My mind was racing, trying to understand what was happening, what my 7-year-old daughter was doing, interrupting a court ruling with an iPad in her hands. "Approach the bench, young lady," Judge Clarkson said finally. Eunice walked forward. She held that iPad carefully like it was precious. The court advocate followed, uncertainty written all over her face. I started to stand. I didn't know what Eunice had, didn't know what she was doing, but she was my daughter and she looked scared despite her brave face. Morgan's hand landed on my arm. "Wait," she whispered. Eunice reached the bench. She had to stand on her toes to hand the iPad up to Judge Clarkson. "I was scared to show Daddy," she said, her voice wobbling slightly, "because I didn't want to make him more sad. But Mommy's been lying, and Todd is mean, and I don't want to live with them anymore." My throat closed up. I couldn't breathe. Judge Clarkson took the iPad. He looked at it, then at both attorneys. "Counselors, approach." Morgan stood immediately. Jared followed, straightening his expensive tie. They went to the bench. There was whispering, urgent, hushed conversation I couldn't hear. Jared glanced back at Victoria. She'd gone pale. Actually pale, like all the blood had drained from her face. In the gallery behind her, Todd leaned forward in his seat, his expression shifting from bored confidence to something that looked a lot like concern. The whispered conference at the bench continued. Judge Clarkson was scrolling through something on the iPad. Morgan was watching the screen. Jared was saying something in a low, urgent voice. Then Judge Clarkson held up a hand. The whispering stopped. "We're going to view this video," he announced. "Bailiff, please set up the display." The bailiff, a heavy-set guy in his 50s named Marcus Hendricks, who'd been silent and professional all through the hearing, moved quickly. He took the iPad from Judge Clarkson and connected it to the courtroom's display system. A large screen on the wall flickered to life. My hands were gripping the edge of the table. Morgan had returned to her seat beside me. She looked tense, uncertain. This wasn't part of any plan we'd made. This was Eunice, doing something none of us had expected. "Daddy?" Eunice was still standing by the bench, looking at me. "Is it okay?" I didn't know what it was, but I trusted my daughter. "It's okay, baby." She nodded and stepped back slightly, the court advocate's hand gentle on her shoulder. Judge Clarkson positioned his finger over the play button on the screen. The courtroom held its breath. He pressed play. The video was shaky at first. Eunice had filmed it herself, probably hiding somewhere with the iPad propped up. But the audio was crystal clear. The timestamp in the corner said 3 months ago. December 14th. Victoria's apartment living room filled the screen. I recognized the furniture. The couch I'd helped her pick out when she first moved in. The coffee table with the glass top. Victoria and Todd were standing near that table, facing each other. Todd had a beer bottle in his hand. "You said you'd leave him." Todd's voice was angry, slurred. "You said we'd be together, Victoria." "I did leave him. I'm here, aren't I?" Victoria sounded tired, frustrated, nothing like the frightened victim she'd played on the stand yesterday. "But you're still dragging this divorce out, still acting like you're the victim. When are you going to tell everyone the truth? When it's strategic, Todd." "Jesus." Victoria's voice sharpened. "My lawyer says playing the scared wife gets me full custody and more money. Once that's settled, then I can be honest about us." I heard Gabriel suck in a breath behind me. Heard Jared shift uncomfortably at the plaintiff's table. But I couldn't look away from that screen. On the video, there was a crash. Glass breaking. Todd had thrown his beer bottle. "Clean that up," he yelled. "I'm sick of your schemes, Victoria. You don't care about Eunice. You care about winning, about getting money from Derek." "Of course I care about Eunice." "Bullshit." Todd's face was red on the screen. "You forget she's here half the time. Last week you left her home alone for 3 hours while you went to that spa with your sister." Silence on the video. Then Victoria's voice, smaller. "I made a mistake." "You make a lot of mistakes." Todd was pacing now. "Like screwing me when you were married. Like lying in court. Like being a shitty mother." The video cut off. Just stopped. Eunice must have stopped recording. The courtroom was dead silent. I looked at Victoria. She was crying at the plaintiff's table, mascara running down her face. Real tears this time. Not the performance tears from yesterday. Todd had his head in his hands. His shoulders were shaking. Jared looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. Judge Clarkson turned off the display. He looked at Eunice, who was standing small and scared by his bench. "Young lady," he said gently, "did anyone ask you to record this?" "No, sir." Eunice's voice was steady despite her fear. "I did it myself. They fight a lot. It scares me. I wanted Daddy to know, but I was afraid he'd get more sad. But today I thought, maybe you should know too." Judge Clarkson nodded slowly. "You're a very brave girl. Thank you for sharing this. You can go back to the advocate now." Eunice walked back past me. I wanted to grab her, hug her, tell her she'd just saved everything. But Morgan's head shook slightly. "Not yet." Judge Clarkson removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. He looked at Victoria, then at me, then at both attorneys. "Mr. Nguyen," he said, his voice sharp, "does your client wish to revise any of her testimony in light of this new evidence?" Jared stood. His expensive suit suddenly looked too big for him. "Your Honor, if I could have a moment to confer with my client." "No." The word cracked like a whip. "Mrs. Harrison, you testified under oath yesterday. You presented yourself as a frightened victim of an unstable husband. This video directly contradicts your testimony. It also reveals that you've been strategically manipulating this court to gain custody and financial advantage, and that you've left your minor child unsupervised. Do you have anything to say?" Victoria stood. She was shaking. "Your Honor, I can explain." "I don't want explanations. I want yes or no answers." Judge Clarkson leaned forward. "Did you have an affair with Mr. McKinley while married to the plaintiff?" "Yes." "Did you lie to this court about the circumstances of your separation?" A pause. Then quietly, "Yes." "Did you leave your 7-year-old daughter home alone while you went to a spa?" "It was only for a little while." "Yes or no, Mrs. Harrison?" "Yes." Judge Clarkson made notes. Then he looked at Todd. "Mr. McKinley, you also testified under oath. You stated you were just friends with Mrs. Harrison. Was that truthful testimony?" Todd didn't stand, didn't even look up. "No, Your Honor." "So you committed perjury in my courtroom?" Yes." Judge Clarkson looked disgusted. "I've been a family court judge for 28 years. I've seen bitter divorces, custody fights, people at their absolute worst. But I have never seen such a calculated attempt to deceive this court and manipulate custody for financial gain." He turned to me. "Mr. Harrison, approach the bench." I stood. My legs felt unsteady. But I walked forward. "Mr. Harrison, I owe you an apology. This court almost made a grave error based on fraudulent testimony. I'm deeply troubled by what I've seen here today. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me yet. I'm going to issue my ruling now, and it's going to be comprehensive." He put his glasses back on, picked up his gavel. "In the matter of Harrison v. Harrison, I rule as follows. Primary physical and legal custody of the minor child Eunice is awarded to the father, Derek Harrison, effective immediately. The mother, Victoria Harrison, is granted supervised visitation only, 1 day per week, pending completion of parenting classes and a psychological evaluation. All requests for alimony are denied. Child support is set at the minimum guideline amount, payable from mother to father given the custody arrangement. Furthermore, I am referring both Mrs. Victoria Harrison and Mr. Todd McKinley to the District Attorney's Office for investigation of perjury charges. What happened in this courtroom was not just a lie, it was a criminal act. I am also ordering an investigation into Mrs. Harrison's fitness as a parent, given the testimony that she left a 7-year-old child unsupervised. Mr. Harrison, you are awarded attorney's fees. Mrs. Harrison will be responsible for reimbursing your legal costs in full. And one more thing." Judge Clarkson looked directly at Todd. "Mr. McKinley, I'm also ordering that a copy of these proceedings be sent to your employer and to the Ohio State Bar Association's Ethics Committee. I understand you work in a professional services firm. Your conduct here reflects a stunning lack of integrity that I believe your professional community should be made aware of." Todd's face went white. Judge Clarkson banged his gavel. "This court is adjourned." I stood there unable to process what had just happened. Morgan grabbed my arm. "We won. Derek, we won everything." Eunice ran to me from where she'd been sitting with the advocate. I dropped to my knees and caught her in my arms, holding her tight enough that she squeaked. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she said, crying into my shoulder. "I didn't want to make you sad, but I couldn't let them lie anymore. You're not in trouble, baby. You're a hero. You're my hero." Behind me I heard Victoria sobbing. Todd was arguing with someone, probably about the perjury charges and the notification to his employer. Jared was packing his briefcase with sharp, angry movements. I didn't care about any of them. I just held my daughter and felt the weight of 2 years finally lift off my shoulders. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork and logistics. Victoria moved her stuff out of the apartment she'd been sharing with Todd. Eunice came home permanently, her room waiting exactly as she'd left it. The district attorney did investigate. Both Victoria and Todd were charged with perjury. Victoria's charges were bad enough, but Todd's situation became catastrophic. The notification to his employer, the marketing firm where he was a senior partner, came first. They placed him on immediate administrative leave pending an internal investigation. Then the story leaked. Local news picked it up. Marketing executive charged with perjury and divorce case. His professional reputation was destroyed overnight. His ex-wife, who divorced him 2 years earlier for his affairs, immediately filed to modify their custody agreement based on his criminal charges and moral turpitude. She won. Todd went from having joint custody of his son to supervised visitation only. But it got worse for him. His law firm colleagues, the ones who'd referred clients to his marketing firm, started pulling their business. Partnerships dissolved. Within 3 months, Todd's firm was hemorrhaging clients and money. His business partners forced him out, buying out his shares at a fraction of their value because of the reputational damage clause in their partnership agreement. He had to sell his house to pay legal fees. His son barely spoke to him. And the perjury conviction, because yes, he was convicted after a short trial, meant he had a criminal record that would follow him forever. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd moved to Columbus, working some low-level marketing job for a fraction of his previous salary. Alone. Broke. Professionally ruined. Good. Victoria completed her court-ordered parenting classes and psychological evaluation. She's allowed unsupervised visitation now every other weekend. Eunice goes, but she's made it clear she prefers being home with me. Victoria and I don't speak except through a custody app. It's better that way. Victoria and Todd broke up about 6 months after the hearing. Turns out their relationship didn't survive once it wasn't forbidden and exciting. And once Todd was broke, disgraced, and facing criminal charges. Todd blamed Victoria for everything, said she'd destroyed his life by lying in court and dragging him into it. Victoria works as an administrative assistant now. She lives in a small apartment on the other side of Cleveland. She's never apologized, not really. But she follows the custody arrangement to the letter, probably terrified of ending up back in front of Judge Clarkson. As for Todd, last I heard he was still in Columbus, still working his mediocre job, still dealing with his own son refusing to have a relationship with him. His ex-wife apparently told their son everything about the perjury case. The kid wants nothing to do with him. 2 years have passed since that day in court. Eunice is 9 now, thriving in 4th grade. She plays soccer and takes piano lessons and has more friends than I can keep track of. The nightmares are gone. The anxiety is gone. She's just a happy kid again. I got a promotion at work. I'm a site manager now. I bought a house with a big backyard where Eunice can play. I started dating again cautiously. Nothing serious yet, but I'm not the same man who discovered his wife's betrayal 2 years ago. I'm stronger, wiser, and I know my worth. Eunice asked me about that day in court last month. Were you scared, Daddy? Terrified, I told her honestly. I thought I might lose you. But you didn't. We won. No, baby. You won. You were braver than I ever could have been. She smiled at that. We make a good team. Yeah, we do. People ask me sometimes if I'm still angry, if I still think about what Victoria did, what Todd did. The truth is I don't. Not anymore. Anger requires energy, requires caring, and I've moved past that. Justice was served. My daughter is safe and happy. I have full custody, a stable home, a good job, and a future that looks nothing like the nightmare I lived through. Victoria? She lost everything. Her marriage, her daughter, her boyfriend, her job, her reputation. She has supervised visitation and a criminal record for perjury. She lives alone in a small apartment and, from what I hear through mutual acquaintances, spends most of her time regretting her choices. Todd? He lost even more. His business, his career, his reputation, his relationship with his own son, his home, his wealth. He went from being a successful senior partner to a disgraced convict working a dead-end job in a city where nobody knows him. And he'll carry that perjury conviction for the rest of his life. I learned something important through all of this. Revenge isn't about making someone suffer. It's about making sure they face the natural consequences of their actions. I didn't destroy Victoria and Todd. They destroyed themselves. I just made sure the truth came out. And the truth was brutal enough. Eunice and I are building a good life now. A better life. One built on honesty and trust and love. One where she knows her father will always fight for her, always protect her, always choose her first. That's my victory. Not the custody ruling, not Victoria's downfall, not Todd's professional destruction. Just knowing that my daughter is safe, happy, and loved. Everything else? Just watching 2 liars get exactly what they earned. And that's the most satisfying ending of all. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.